So we got out of the dairy in 2005, and it destroyed my parents to do it. But you know the reason we got out is because Kroger came to us. We had a contract with Kroger, and it ended in 2004.
I didn't know that.
Had a contract with Kroger.
Shout out to Kroger.
Kroger buys DFA milk. Really good place to buy your milk.
Hey, shout out to Kroger.
Really fair. But
some people put an S on that.
the problem, Kroger's. The problem with that is that Kroger has to compete with everybody else.
Absolutely. It's a free market.
So they came to my parents in 2004, and they basically said, we won't renew your contract unless you double your milk production. And my dad was like, there's no fucking way.
You'd
There's
have
no
to
fucking
double
way.
your infrastructure, which
Exactly.
is money.
That's what the thing that was, the worst part about it is by the time 2004 came around, that dairy was ticking. It was moving. They had it down to a science. My parents, as many problems as I have with them, my dad is a very intelligent person, very organized, very hard working,
very well read, just like you.
And they basically brought that farm off its knees. When my great grandfather died, my great grandmother had Alzheimer's, and they had to keep her in the rest home. And I didn't learn this till a few years ago. And my dad always blames my granddad, for basically losing the farm. But he struggled through the 80s farm crisis.
Yes.
And then on top of that, had to pay all the money to keep my great-grandmother in the nursing home because she had Alzheimer's. I mean, what do you do with somebody? So, by the time my great-grandfather died, that farm had an enormous amount of debt. And all the kids, there was 5 of them, got together and decided they were going to cut that farm up. They had it platted off into 26 plats.
Golly.
And had it on the chopping block. Like, Barry H. Smith was there ready to auction that bitch off.
Yeah.
And my dad went, he was determined he was going to save that farm. And that's one reason my family has struggled so hard. Even though my parents have made good money, they paid. You got to realize in 1997, they paid subdivision prices for that farm. The only way that that my dad's family, his aunts and uncles would let him buy that farm is if he could match that price. That is saying something. When my parents' farm sold in 97, they bought it, it was the highest price any land had ever brought in Henry County. And to make that work, it was insane. And the worst part of it is that the 4 siblings who weren't on the farm, my grandfather stayed there. They cut him completely out of it. They actually made him pay something in.
And he's the one that owned it.
He's the one that stayed there. My great-grandfather owned it. But my grandfather stayed on the farm, sacrificed basically his entire life to stay there and keep it alive. And by the end of the 90s, that farm was gone, basically. Like my dad always says, there wasn't a bit of fence. The barns were falling down. It was on its knees. They had been farming since 1951. They had been dairying since 1951.
Been farming for centuries.
Yeah, farming since I can... Hey!
Ever since it's been like the stories my grandpa got from his parents, that he got from his parents.
Hey, it's like Joey said.
Every one of us were farmers.
It's like Joey said. All the way back to Denmark, dog. I'm the heir to the throne.
Let's go.
But that was an enormous hill that my parents had to scale. They had to. My dad double cropped tobacco. Double crop 50 acres of tobacco and sold it on the black market to make it work because they had no options. Yeah. They had a mortgage that they had to pay for top dollar land that didn't make money. It took everything we fucking had to make it work. I'm going to tell you right now, man. Those first... My 8-year-old earliest memories, my earliest memories are of struggle, or of pain, of just literally... My dad tells stories about falling asleep on the fucking tractor at night. I mean, it was pure just grind. And by 2004, they had it. They had it. They had it where they wanted it. They had that dairy making money. They brought it off its knees. They turned it into a real fucking dairy. And one of the saddest stories that my dad tells is that they had an old milk truck driver named Bob.
Yep.
Bob picked the milk up every day.
Shout out to Bob.
And my dad said he'd come in one day to pick up the milk. He'd tell Bob that they were selling out. And he said Bob had to leave. Had to walk out of the parlor because he was in tears. Because he said, if you guys can't make it, it's over. Because Bob grew up in Owen County. Grew up on a dairy farm. And all he ever wanted to do was dairy farm. But he couldn't make it. So he started driving a milk truck. He wanted to stay.
Be a part of it.
To be, exactly, to be a part of it. And the point I'm trying to make is that even at that point, to Bob, that farm was like the showpiece of the dairies in Henry County at the time. My parents really did make something of it. And when they told him that he had to sell out, he was like, if you all can't make it, there's no fucking hope. There's no way that this can happen. And that's what my parents, they debated for a year. In 2004, the contract ended, and for a year, till 2005, whether or not to just jump in, buy more land, and get that new contract to double the milk production. But basically, the conclusion after they ran all the math was, it's just we're going to have to struggle harder than we struggled to get to this point to make that work. And it was like, at the end of the day, what are we really gaining? What are you getting out of that?
You bring up the 80s farm crisis.
Well, see, wait. I wanted to make a point.
Go ahead.
So, Megan, who's my sister,
Yeah.
she's just as involved in farming as I am. She's bigger into she went to college for it and all that. Well, she had to do a study on dairy farms. And on our block, there in Smithville, like our block, the road goes around the land. I'm not talking about like a city block.
Yeah.
The road that goes around. There were 8 dairy farms.
Wow.
In the 80s. 8! In that small, we're talking about 2 square miles. There was 8 dairy farms. My parents were the last one. Right now, I shit you not, I bet you there are maybe 2.
Dairy farmers in the county.
In the county. There were probably hundreds.
And our county's pretty large.
Yeah, it's
We
big.
have a lot of land here in the county.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is that, both sides of my family dairied. That's all they ever did. That was a lifestyle. And I'm going to tell you right now, if there has ever been a farming lifestyle, it's being a dairy farmer. Because I'm going to tell you, you are 100% committed. It is twice a day, 365 days a year. I can remember Christmas morning, my parents getting up at 4 o'clock, going out and milking and coming in for Christmas and then going right back out to it.
What about when your
dad,
What about when your dad had a stomach bug?
Oh, I'm going to tell you right now. My dad broke 2 arms during the dairy.
Right.
2 arms, worked a job and dairied.
No excuse.
And I can remember that man sitting at the kitchen table cutting a cast off because it was getting in the way. A month early. I'm going to tell you right now,
4 weeks.
the man's fucking wrists do not turn to this day.
He had milks to cow.
I can remember him